Hello, everyone. This is Grace. It is September the 22nd, 2021, and we are continuing our investigation into how the literal Israel became the literal America that we know today. And we had just reviewed Daniel 2 and Daniel 11, which showed us that the people of God, the nation of the I don't want to say Israel, but Israel, yeah, Israel, because I want to say Judah. I think it was speaking. I can't remember. The nation of Israel is going to be ruled by first Babylon, then Medo-Persia, then Greece, then Rome, and then another country which has not yet been identified, but is identified by the Bible as the feet and toes of iron and clay. So these are the nations that shall rule the people of God, or the nation of Israel. Now, and it's identified here as the realm of Grecia. Now, it's not called Grecia because they're pagan or anything. It's because, for the most part, we have a lot of Greek in us after being in captivity under Babylon, under Medo-Persia, under Greece for so long. We have a lot of that in us, and we speak the Greek language. If you haven't seen the video on the language of God's people, take a look at that. We speak Greek. English is Greek. So in order to tie this to America, we're going to have to use a common sense approach. So if you when you consider that, let me think. When I was growing up, and let me think here. The only people that don't have memory of their past today are Black Americans. We're the only ones. Yet and still you have the Israel people who just had to kind of pick out a country to go to. But they still have memory of their heritage. Why is it that only Black Americans don't have a past? When I was growing up as a young girl, we would talk about our aunties and our uncles. His father died when he was 9 months old. But we had lots of aunts and uncles. I think he said he was, oh man, how many? I'm ashamed. I don't even remember. He had 17 brothers and sisters. There was 18 of them, I think. I think she had 18 kids. It might have been 12. I just don't recall. It was a lot of kids. But his father died when he was 9 months old. But we had aunties and uncles. My mother was an only child, but her mother was alive. And so we had grandma. She's Maria. But when I grew up, and I had met my peers of different races, it fascinated me that they could go way back into their history and into their heritage. And my people came from Australia, and they were poor as church mice. That was an old saying that one of my friends used to say. But they all had histories that went far, far back. See, there's no need to take away the history of a person unless that history is a threat. There's no need for it. And we are the only ones that don't have a history. Why was our history a threat? Well, you can even see this a little bit in the Bible, If we knew we were the people of God, it would have undone all of this oppression that has happened in the past. None of it. You can see it in the Bible. The people of the Bible were just, they were so proud sometimes it came off as a little bit arrogant. Read the story of the Good Samaritan. They saw the guy half dead on the sidewalk and would not go help him. Can you imagine if we knew we were the people of God? I mean, you couldn't tell us anything. Look, oppression doesn't work. Oppression doesn't work when it comes to messing with a person's ego. It just doesn't work. It just makes them skeptical of the government. We don't wake up in the morning thinking about how bad we are and all the bad things that are said about black people. Nobody cares about that. We don't care. We don't believe it. We don't sit up and think about it. We don't feel sorry for ourselves. None of this happens. We just don't believe it. And we go on about our lives. It used to be, there was never a time when people were saying, oh my goodness, all these black people are killing themselves. No, we didn't. See, it's a little bit different for men. It's a little, because men require more. They require, they need a purpose in life that tends to be dictated outside of themselves. But if you're just trying to downgrade a person with words and propaganda and tactics such as that, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. They just don't believe you. They grow a healthy amount of skepticism, and it rolls off of us at some point like water on a duck's back. It just doesn't mean anything. So if our egos are intact here today now, if we knew we were the people of God, and you see the way the people of God acted in the Bible, how they wouldn't touch a person, they wouldn't help a person out, this, that, and the other. It was a problem. It was a problem. So they did what they needed to do. They got rid of, they burned all the books. They made up all these laws where you can't teach the truth. And then they took all of our kids and put them in school and taught them something different. And they erased our history. They erased it because it was a threat. We couldn't know that. And if you say, oh, well, Israel, why didn't they know where their people were? They have their history. Why is it that they didn't know? Why is it that they had to just go and select a country in order for them to live in? All of this time, they never fought for anything. They just had to find a nation and put them there. No. It doesn't make sense. There was one thing that was handed down to us, though. There was one thing that was handed down to us in our history, and I'm telling you, we forgot about it. It took the racists to remind us. We would sit around, we would call each other kings and queens and stuff like that. But nobody ever said this. It took the racists to come along and remind us of the one thing that our ancestors handed down through the generations. And that is that we were kings. Tell me, how can you have a nation of kings unless it's dictated by God? Nobody else makes that claim. Only Americans make that claim that we were a nation of kings. All of this time, we would call each other kings and queens and kings and queens. But I've never heard anybody say we were kings. It just completely left our minds. Look, we'll take it how we can get it. Good or bad, it was given back to us. And that was the only legacy that was handed down amongst our people to tell us who we were. Is that we were a nation of kings. And there's only one nation of kings that's dictated by God. And those are the children of Israel. That's what ties it back to America. Nobody else can make that claim. Everybody else has a history. We have one thing that has been dictated by God and handed down by our ancestors. Everything else has been taken away. Why? There's no need to erase a person's heritage. There's no need for it unless it's a threat. And it was a threat because our egos were off the charts because we were children of God. You couldn't tell us anything. You couldn't oppress us. You couldn't. And we had to walk into country after country. We had to walk into Babylon and hand ourselves over as slaves. And they still had egos off the charts in the days of Rome. You still couldn't tell them anything. Anyway, let's take a look at the map here. Now, I did a lot of research on the map. But what happened is, man, I couldn't write that stuff down. It was just too much. I couldn't. You have to do your own research. I'm just going to tell you what I came up with. And really, that's about it. You don't have to believe it. I mean, this is not something you need to believe. It's not a requirement to get into heaven or anything like that. But the point is that a lie can keep you out of heaven. Because if you accept one lie, you accept another. We need to know the truth so that we can dig ourselves out of this hole that they've put us in. You see what I'm saying? No, if you accept one lie, then you can accept another. If you're over there thinking that the people of Israel are the children of God, and they tell you something that is against the laws and the dictates of the Bible, then you got a problem. If you think that they are over that in any kind of way. Even their interpretation. They tell you that you have to interpret the Bible based on their habits, based on their beliefs. What? No, the Bible don't say that. The Bible doesn't say that. We don't know. No, look. There was this old thing, this elder in my church. She used to talk to people about smoking all the time. And people would say to her, is smoking going to keep me out of heaven? That's all I want to know. Is smoking going to keep me out of heaven? And she would say, no, smoking is not going to keep you out of heaven, but it may keep you from going to heaven. It may keep you from going to heaven. It may block you in some other way. It may cause some other fault in you. You see what I'm saying? So let's look for the truth. So anyway, I didn't write the scriptures down, but you can do your own research, and I'll tell you what I found out just from looking and from looking at other people's research into the geography of the Bible. Okay? Now, first of all, Harry Hubbard has identified the many relics of Greece in southern Illinois. He has found the tomb of Alexander the Great in southern Illinois. He has such a collection of Greek items that if the people over in Greece had those items that he had, they'd be in cloud nine. They can find nothing that comes even close to even... I'm telling you, they have nothing like the collection that Harry Hubbard has of Greek items, which he has found in Illinois, in southern Illinois. He found it like throughout in different spots of Illinois, I think. But he found the tomb of Alexander the Great in southern Illinois. Now, they say that Sodom and Gomorrah was in lowlands. Now, listen, I'm from America. Geography is not our strong point here in America. And me, even more so than most. Geography and history, not my thing. I don't believe the history. So, hey, it is what it is. They said it's in lowlands, so it could be over here. Especially, I wouldn't even put it that far over. I'd put it There's not enough water over there. Maybe somewhere here around Texas, I'm not sure. But they say it's a lowland. Um, if I was a little bit more familiar with the area, I could find some place that's been damaged that nothing grows and stuff like that. And there we would find Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. Anyway, Egypt, of course, was supposed to have been a desert-like climate, not a lot of water, but they had the river, right? So that would be this Red River. And wait a second. I can't remember, but I do remember that Moses had to cross the Red Sea. Let's look at that scripture. Hold on. We're going to look that up. So Red Sea. This word red here is just a noun. It's just telling you the name, right? This word sea here does not necessarily have to be a sea. It can be a river. From an unused root word meaning roar, a sea, as breaking in noisy surf, or a large body of water, specifically with the article, the Mediterranean. Sometimes a large river or an artificial basin, locally the West or rarely the South, or rarely the South Sea. Okay, but what it is, it's just it's a large body of water that it has to be untamed because it gives the word, the first definition for the word is roar. So it's untamed water, which the Mississippi River is. And the Red Sea is as well, I think, in the lower parts here. The Mississippi in the lower parts here is completely wild. We spend billions of dollars, I think, each year in order to maintain these waters so that they can be used for boats and barges and stuff like that. But up further near the top, then it calms down. This is one of the main 4 rivers that was established in the Garden of Eden. And you could tell by how big it is and how far reaching it is. But anyway, the Egyptians would have tried to cross the Mississippi River here into the southern area of Louisiana and Mississippi, which is where I believe the people of God are. The Gulf of Mexico is considered a Dead Sea. The Red River, I mean, it could have just been changed since all of these other names have been changed. But this is where I believe the people of God were. And this is where most of the black people were and still are in this nation. I don't really know what the newer censuses say, but I know for a very long time, this is where we've been concentrated at. A lot of people, like my parents, my mother is from Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana as well. I was born there, but I wasn't raised there. And then my father is from Mississippi, and they were a part of the large migration of African American people, black people that moved up north to find jobs in the various areas up north. And I think there may have been some that moved out, and then I don't know. They just say up north. We moved up north. And so, yeah, this is where the people of God were. This was their nation. Now, it said that Babylon came from the north. So, the north, if you remember, if you saw the video if you saw the video that I did on nature in the Bible, then the north is actually south. So Babylon would have come either from maybe the Brazil area or here in Texas. No, Babylon would have been here because they talk about the gardens of Babylon and the water area. So Babylon would have been here. So would Rome. The reason Rome, as far entire, would have been in the same area. The reason why I think Rome was in this area is because if you look, it's just a theory, you know. Do your own research. It's just my own theory because this is not based on anything that I've heard. It's just a speculation. Okay, everything else that I'm telling you is I did do some research. It just was too much to write down everything, and the scriptures. It was just too much. I couldn't do it. So, but if you listen to truthers, the people that are in the know, they like to mock us behind our back. They think it's funny when they do stuff and we don't know about it, and they have a little inside gag amongst themselves. So because it refers to I think it's Isaiah 23. It talks about Tyre, but it describes what I believe is the Roman Empire, or the Romans. And Tyre, this seems to be a continual theme throughout the Bible when it talks about Tyre. So I guess it is a little bit scripturally based. I guess it just depends on how you interpret the scriptures. But because it hangs off and it's surrounded by water like this in America, I think that has something to do with why they picked Rome hanging out, hanging out similar to this. So it's just my opinion, though. That's my opinion why they selected Rome to be as it is, because none of these locations are what they say they are. They literally just renamed everything. They just renamed everything to confuse us specifically, I believe. Yeah. But anyway, that is what I came up with. You'll have to do your own research on that. It was a little bit too much for me to try and write all that stuff down and tell you everything that I saw and I believed. But there you have it. Let's look at the other maps. I don't remember what all I put in here. No. Yeah, see, this is just not. Never mind. I'll leave it at what I've already said, I think, unless I think of something else about the maps. No, that was it then. So, yeah. Okay. That is my argument, and that's my premise, if I didn't give it to you, that all of the 4 nations that were named in Daniel 2 were all over the area of Israel. It was a different king, a different nation, but they ruled over the same area and the people of God, which would make us under the jurisdiction of Rome at this time. Either Rome or the feet and toes. We're under that jurisdiction now. And since the only people that don't have a history are the black people in America, nobody else can claim it. No one else has claimed it. And if Israel is going to claim it, why didn't they know where they were from? Why didn't they know where they were from? Doesn't anybody find that odd? Well, it is odd. It doesn't matter whether you see it as odd or not. It's odd. The one legacy that we did have, even though we don't have a history, the one thing that our ancestors handed down to us is that we were a nation of kings. And that is in the Bible. That is how I tie literal Israel, biblical Israel, to literal America. And I'll leave it at that. I'll see you in the next video.